witches.
Hi, hello, and welcome back.
It is time for a new episode. I am going to be talking today about shadow work.
Shadow.
Shadow work. But so I literally at the top of my notes put trigger warnings. So I'm not going to talk about any specific triggers within this episode. The trigger warning is for if you're doing this work yourself. Um, it's very important that you're in a safe, controlled environment, that you are not like in your car. You're going to want to be somewhere where you can let yourself feel your emotions. And you're going to be examining some of your traumas and some of your triggers, like things that cause you to have negative emotions. So, prefacing all of this with trigger warnings, and then we're gonna back up um, and talk about kind of what shadow work comes from, because shadow work has kind of been adopted by the witchcraft community because we
It's
realize
cheap
how
therapy.
important it is. It is, and it's important. It's very important to know your shadows and know your underlying intentions, like your unconscious intentions, because if you have those unconscious intentions underneath and you do a spell, it could go wrong. So it's kind of been adopted, but it actually started and still is like a psychological thing. Um, and
I feel
it
like
could be
a
free
lot of,
therapy, or you could do it with your therapist.
yeah, I feel like a lot of I don't know much about shadow work, obviously. I feel like your introspection kind of thing is basically what therapy is. And I feel like that's what shadow work is.
Yeah, a lot of it is. So, first of all, the person to give credit to for shadow work is Carl Jung. He was I don't really know a lot about him. I just know that what his name is and that he did a lot of work with like the ego, the shadow self, the id, which we're going to talk about all of those things as well. Um, but he is also credited in this book. So I have two sources today that I used to talk about this. I have, oops, oh my God. I have the Shadow Work Journal that I got off the TikTok shop. I am not getting paid or an affiliate for this journal. I haven't even really dug too deep into using it, but I started reading through it and I used some of what I read as my research for this episode. And then I also used the website orionphilosophy.com. So that's where a lot of the stuff about most of this stuff about Carl Jung comes from. Um, but based on that website, the shadow is the form that is taken by the aspects of our nature that we dislike. So the parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of, the impulsive parts that we hide from ourselves. A lot of the time, our shadow is if there's something about other people that you specifically dislike, like if there's something that just really turns you off in other people, that might be part of your shadow self. So you like recognizing that and looking internally is a big thing. It's something specifically that I'm working on. I detest when people play the victim. I use that phrase a lot, um, but I do it. So I don't feel that I do it in as like severe of situations, but I definitely do it. So um it's important to look at things that you dislike about other people and be introspective and see if those things are in yourself. Um they also describe the shadow as like a cognitive blind spot. So it's like a blind spot in your brain. Um because it's parts of yourself that you're like unaware of. You don't pay attention to or notice. A lot of our biases come from our shadow self because we don't realize typically that we are biased. Sometimes, if you're me, 1000%, I love you all, but I have a bias against men. I I do. I have to be very conscious of that because sometimes um I'll meet somebody and I will automatically not like them just because they're a man, and then have to like back myself up and realize, oh, wait, especially if they're like an elderly white man, I have
Trauma.
to, right, I have to go back into myself and realize that is me. I am projecting that negativity onto them and not like giving them a true chance. Which is really funny because one of my best friends right now is a white man. So like, um,
So
just,
funny.
gotta keep it real with yourself. Um, our shadow self is also an element of our psyche that is unconscious. So it's like your repressed desires, your repressed ideas, your instincts, your weaknesses, your shortcomings. We don't focus on those because they're negative, and we focus only on what's good about ourselves. But we notice other people's shadow selves quickly. So that also affects our biases. But um the shadow, so this was another quote. The shadow is caused by the resistance that comes from the differences in the life our ego consciously has us live to fit into the world around us and the behavior our id draws us towards. That sounds really super confusing,
Yeah, it does.
but I'm going to explain it. So the id is the part of our psyche that is driven by impulse, desire, instant gratification, the avoidance of pain. So basically, the id is your consciousness that you were born with. It's what you have when you're at your most basic as a baby. Like, you don't want pain, you don't want discomfort, you want to be fed, you want to be safe, you want to have what you want when you want it. That's the id. And the ego is the way that we look at the world and our place in it. The shadow is the in between of those two things. So the id is what we need, the shadow or the ego is how we want to be seen, and the shadow is everything in between.
Oh,
Um
this is kind of like the mask theory, where it's like you have a mask for yourself and it's your true form, and then you have a mask for your friends and family, and then like strangers. So
yeah.
you wear these three masks throughout the day.
Yeah. Um so the ego is also how we decide what our place in the reality of the world is. So how we choose to present ourselves based on our experiences, values, and beliefs. So one example, and this is also something I'm trying to be more conscious of because I've realized that I do bash Christians a lot. Not all Christians are bad, but a good example that a lot of us have had experience with, most likely, of the way that the ego can be negative. The ego is not always a bad thing, but the way that it can be a bad thing is, like, for example, someone who presents themselves to the world as a very godly person. Like, they wear long skirts, they don't cut their hair, they go to church every Sunday, but then they're hateful and they like spread rumors and talk about people or do bad things. Like, that is an example of when the ego is bad. Um ooh, so on this website that I use, the Orion Philosophy, they used the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
Oh.
um, by Robert Louis Stevenson as an example of the ego and the shadow self. So, if you don't know the story, Dr. Jekyll is um, he's a man and he has these dual internal personalities of good versus evil. So the good man, Henry Jekyll, wants to be like, that's who he wants to be. And then there is the evil, impulsive, and cruel Edward Hyde that is inside him. So Jekyll um knows that Hyde is not who he wants to be, but that's still there, and there's like an internal conflict, and Jackal repress it has like some blah, blah, blah. He represses the Hyde or his dark side, but just as we know, I feel like we've talked about it before, repressing bad things and holding them inside is not healthy. It will come back out, and in the story it does. So um in that way, the story of Jackal and Hyde is a great, like, I don't know,
Teaching moment
picture
kind of
or
thing.
example of the ego and the shadow. Like I already said, one easy way to check or find aspects of your own shadow self is to look at others and find qualities that you dislike. If you dislike someone who is always weak, that's probably an insecurity that you have about yourself. And it's very much like how, we always, or at least when we were in school, we don't say this anymore as kids or as teachers, but they would say that, like, oh, they're bullying you because they're jealous of you,
Yeah.
or like it's that.
Or like
And some of
boys
that
are
is
mean
true,
to you
like,
because they like you kind of thing.
yeah, and like it's kind of been proven to be true, but we don't tell kids that anymore because it has harmful repercussions. But like a lot of the times when people are bullying or mean, it is because they see something in you that they don't like about themselves, and so they're taking it out on you instead of taking it out on themselves.
Zootopia did a really great job on this. So as a child, I don't remember his name, but he was the fox. He was bullying the
Mm,
rabbit. God, I can't remember
yep.
her name either.
What is his name? Her name is Judy Hopps.
Yeah, Adrian? I don't know. Anyways, the fox from the
Uh,
beginning, she returns back to her hometown and her parents are like, "Oh yeah, like he's dropping off pastries or pies or whatever." And she's like, "Excuse me? Like why? Who is this person?" So then she goes up to him and he ends up like apologizing for his behavior as a child. And he goes, "I have a lot of repressed this or repressed that. And I was doing this and a lot of self doubt." And I was like, yo, that's true. I
right?
mean, that's pretty accurate rendition of what
Pixar
bullies
is
do.
good at that.
Oh my god,
They're so good at it. See
did you
the
see
new
the new movie
Inside
for them?
Out trailer.
I'm so
Yes.
excited. Hi, I'm anxiety and I come with baggage.
Yes, and I want to know who her friends are because she said friends
I
plural.
know. Yeah.
Like
And then
when
it's
she said
like,
it, I was like, oh, okay,
who are the new
depression. But
emotions?
then,
Yeah.
like, who are the other ones? Like, is it like,
Self doubt.
hmm, ooh,
I'm
yeah,
thinking like typical like
mania?
teenager. Oh, listen, I'm so excited. My psychology background is like,
Yes,
I
because
want to
the
see
first
more.
movie, legit, like that, the first movie is used in schools all the time because it helps,
Yeah.
and like the
When,
characters, everything. Like,
yeah. When I was a social service agent and I like went to schools to talk to kids about like their home life and all of that, we would obviously do it in like either a meeting room but in a place that like the kid would feel more like confident or comfortable. So we would always 9 times out of 10 go to the counselor's office. And in the counselor's office as a child, like they had those posters up and I would be like, well, like when you're at home, which one of these people like represents your dad, or does like is there an emotion not up here that represents your dad or something like that? And I would utilize
yeah,
that and they'd be like, "Oh, like my dad is angry all the time, like explosive angry, like how he gets really explosive." And then they'd be
yeah,
like, and my mom is the sad one because dad's always explosive towards mom. And it's like
yeah,
domestic violence. Obviously,
right.
I had to have
Which
more like
also is
evidence,
insane
but
because that also kind of goes along with the psychology. Like, as we get older, men tend to repress their emotions and get more angry, and women tend to get more depressed. And in that movie, in the scene when
yeah.
they're in the parents' minds, anger is in control of the dad's brain and sadness is in control of the mom's brain, while joy is in control of the child's. So
And
basically,
it's
shadow work is supposed to get joy to be the leader in your brain again.
oh, I just got goosebumps.
That is our goal here. Um but yeah, that was a good segue. Um
I love that movie.
excuse me.
I'm so
Ugh.
excited.
um okay, so how no matter how the shadow like presents itself or comes out, there is a good chance that it will be destructive and have like a destructive or negative impact on our well-being or life. Um and usually like this is not some outside force working on you. This is your internal things happening. So usually we'll see have some blah, 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 blah. The shadow will impact us negatively in the form of self-destructive behaviors. Um so one of mine, not all the time, but sometimes I will overspend. If I am sad or upset, I like things.
Yes.
And I get serotonin from buying things, not grocery shopping, but like buying fun things. So
It's
that is one self
it's
destructive habit
not
that I have.
good.
Yeah.
Yo, the other day
I
though,
feel like
I
it's a
straight
common
up
one.
yeah. The other day I made a comment where like nothing was bugging me. Like my clothes didn't feel too tight, like I didn't feel like I was having sensory overload. I was feeling good. Like I was up and at 'em. Like nobody at work was annoying me. Like I just felt normal. As weird as that sounds, I felt normal. And then I'm sitting there thinking about it and I was like, am I in a manic episode? Like nothing's bugging me. And I stopped and I was like, I literally just made 5 purchases and I probably shouldn't have. And I was like, that makes me happy. And that's probably why I'm in such a mania mode because
Right?
I bought things and I'm happy. And then not even 2 days later, I was back to like, I was annoyed. I was pissed off. Everything dropped,
Yep.
everything was shattering. I was just annoyed.
It's a thing. And it's a thing too that's very common, I feel, in rural areas because there's
That's
not a lot
basically all
to
you have.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, there's not a lot to
That's why
do
there's a
except
lot of
going shopping.
population too.
Yes. That's another self-destructive behavior is like whoring around, for lack of a better term. I don't like saying that because you do
You
you.
do
Like if
you.
that's what truly makes you happy, then great. And sex is not a negative thing, but like sex in unsafe ways or with unsafe people is, and that happens. Um, or drugs. Like there's all kinds of different self-destructive behaviors. Those are some more extreme ones, but there are other like having that extra snack or like there's other
Overeating, binge eating.
yeah
Yeah.
or taking a nap instead of doing your homework, or like there's lots of self-destructive behaviors, and those typically are a result of your shadow manifesting.
It's
um
basically anything that you use whatever you're using to not deal with
yeah,
it.
yeah. And okay, the first thing, like the first barrier, I guess, to shadow work is accepting that part of who you are is the shadow and it is something that you don't like the accepting that there is a good, not good and evil, because the shadow is not necessarily evil, it's just
Your inner person.
yeah, it's just less
It's
desirable because
becoming friends with your demons.
yeah, like if you just need to get, I don't know, accept that it's there, accept that you're not perfect and there are negative parts to your psyche. And everyone has a shadow. There is not a single person like Gandhi, Mother Teresa, they all had a shadow. Okay, nobody's perfect. um and
Nobody's perfect. You better work. I
and
was not a fan of that show growing up. I don't know where that came from. Go ahead.
I was, but I I'm not now that I know more about all the anyway, that's a whole nother tangent that we don't have time for. um so the other part of that first step is that not only accepting that it's there, but that it is going to affect you. Like it's going to affect the way you behave, it's going to affect the way you perceive the world. And there's nothing you can do about that except for like addressing it and being aware of it. Um like it's there, it's not going anywhere. Kind of
Deal with
like
it.
how Riley like had to acknowledge her sadness in Inside Out and all of that. Like that's very much
Ugh, such a good
what this is
movie.
about. It is. It really is. Um the second part of shadow work is learning the nature of your shadow. So what is your shadow? It's different for everybody. Like there's thousands of examples I could list, but you have to like be introspective and do self-reflection. Um it could be meditation, it could be journaling. I'll go more into that in a minute. But figuring out what your shadow is the next step. And then the last step, or the last step, this is an ongoing process. Let's be very clear. You're never done doing shadow work. It's not like I'm going to fill out this journal and then I'm just going to be better and it's going to be done. No, it's
Nah, there'll be a
ongoing.
Shadow Journal 2.0.
Right. You got to keep going. um but the third step is the negotiation, which is the back and forth that you're going to have with yourself. You're negotiating with yourself between accepting the shadow you have and rejecting it, or figuring out what is useful, like what parts of your shadow are useful, because your instincts are part of your shadow and those are probably a good thing. Like um so and then what is not, and then how you're going to address that. um Something that can be a barrier to shadow work, um and something that our shadow self can cause or reinforce are mind traps. There are there's a whole list of them and I'm going to go through them because I think it's super interesting. And sometimes these mind traps can reinforce our shadow self or reinforce our ego, where we're like, "Oh, no, that's not an issue for me." Um the first one is called anchoring, where the first thing you judge influences your judgment of everything else. So if you meet, like, for example, using a very polarizing example in our society right now, is you meet one police officer who is a racist piece of shit. Well, now you're going to judge all police officers to some level off of that standard. Um, and
That could go for
that's not
anything.
necessarily right. It's the same for anything. Like you meet one, I can't even think of another
One
example right
bad
now.
apple in a race, and then the rest of the
Yeah.
time. Well, it's like the stereotypes, basically. Like,
Yeah.
um, people think African Americans are more poor because they're, I don't know, found more in poor areas, but really it's like that's kind of a systematic
Mhm.
problem because they're not given as many things. Whereas, like, like the Jewish religion, people believe that they are penny pinchers, as people call them, because they like to
Yeah.
save
Or
money and not
millennials are all
spend it.
lazy, or like
Yeah. And Gen
all of
Zers
the
are stupid, like,
yeah.
or snowflakes, I think is what the term is. People think quote unquote snowflakes are millennials, but
Yeah.
they're mixing the generations
Yep.
up. But like it's just those stereotypes. You see one and it just completes, like, that's why I think most white people are fucking racist. Not most people, I shouldn't say that. Most white people in smaller communities, there we go. That's a much
There you
better way to
go.
say it. Are more racist cuz like I it's it you know you don't realize how racist you think or are, whether you're blatantly racist or like the underlying like motives behind certain things are racist, until you get to a bigger area with more of a culture, and then you sit there and you're like, wow, you don't
These
realize
are the
the shit that
biases
you
that
were
were ingrained
doing.
in me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I'm not saying it's like my parents' fault or anything, but they grew up in the town that I grew up in. That's all they knew.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
really weird, the shadow work that you do to get to that point.
Yes. And some of us have already been doing shadow work without even realizing that's what we were doing, like how we were just talking about that. Like we both went through that, growing and learning and shedding some of those beliefs we had.
Yeah, and then you say
Um,
something to like not necessarily the wrong person, but to somebody who doesn't think like that, and then they like look at you, and then you think, "Oh my god, I'm a fucking asshole."
right? Like oops.
My bad. Sorry, guys. I
Um,
didn't mean to think that way.
confirmation bias, where
Ooh,
you favor or prefer things that confirm what you already believe.
I learned all about that in my master's.
Yes. So that's, yeah. That is a thing, thinking of psychology and ABA and that world, that is very hard for people on the spectrum to get past. Like they have very, not all of them, let me preface that, but many people, like a common trait of people on the spectrum, um, is that they have very rigid mindsets and very, like, a lot of rigidity in their mind. So they prefer things that prop up that
Hmm.
rigid belief system that they have. They don't like things that challenge it. The next one is reactance, where you would rather do the opposite of what someone is trying to make you do. In our world, we call that defiance. um, but that's reactance. Sunk cost fallacy, where you irrationally cling to things that have already cost you something. Um, a lot of the times, a very easy um, example of this is when someone is in a relationship with either someone who's abusive or cheating or whatever. That person has already cost you your dignity or your safety, but you cling to them.
Because that's all you
Um,
know.
right.
That can
Um,
also go a little deeper too with the, like the psyche of like what you think you are in yourself because of the narcissism.
yeah. There's lots of aspects to all of these. And a lot of these go together. Like they just
You
like the
find one answer, then you find three more.
yeah, they like work together and it's just like a thing. The Dunning, I might be pronouncing this one wrong. I meant to go back and look up the pronunciation and I forgot. But I think it's pronounced the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the more you know and the more knowledge you have, the less confident you are. So kind of like second guessing yourself.
Ooh, all the time. Hello.
Yeah,
That's my middle name.
right.
Will doesn't
The
help with that.
backfire effect. The backfire effect. When your core beliefs are challenged, it can cause you to believe in them more strongly, which
Ooh,
is annoying.
white
Which
people.
means I probably should look into that because I
You
find it
double
very
down.
irritating in other people. So,
You know,
um,
that also kind of brings up a good point though. Is it irritating because you are similar to that? Which, yes. Yes, in a way.
yes.
But also, is it annoying to you because you are so traumatized because you've dealt with that like you witness the signs? So
I think
is it
so,
a
and I think
trauma
some of
response
that,
or is it you?
I think it's both for me, and I think some of it, look at me just like diving deep into Moments Like You right now. I think some of it is because I grew up with someone who had a mental illness, an undiagnosed mental illness, and this was something that they did. Like they would double down and dig their heels in. And so I think I rebel against it in some ways, but I also do it myself in the opposite direction that this person did.
Yeah.
So where maybe they would double down on like Christianity or conservative views, I'm going to double down in the opposite direction.
Yo,
Um,
okay, now that you say that, that makes me think about like my own personal biases and all of that.
yep.
Because that's kind of how I feel. Like when anytime anyone brings up religion for anything, like as innocent as I sneeze at work and somebody goes, "God bless you," like I immediately shut down and get like annoyed, like ew.
I'm like, which one?
Yeah,
Because I'm petty.
right. And I'm like, ugh.
Which, unrelated
And
tangent, but like
it's
something
not
I would like
even
to
like
talk about
bad.
later. I, um, as we're doing pantheons, I think that to challenge ourselves, we should hit the Christian pantheon or the Christian Judaism pantheon because
All right,
I
I need that
recently,
shadow workbook.
right, I
I need to go
very
through some
recently
trauma.
learned about some um like other deities that are in the Hebrew
Isn't it like
writings.
Ishtar one of them, or
Mm,
Esther?
Ashira
Ishtar, huh?
or Ashtira.
I think Ishtar is like the Babylonian version of it, but I think Esther is
Well, she's a
technically
female.
Easter. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's more like, so I think to challenge ourselves, eventually we should do that. Not saying next, I just think that we should try it.
Let's get through a
Anyway,
pantheon and then like go from there. See where we
yeah,
want to go.
we just started Norse, so we'll circle
It'll
back
be
to
a
that.
bit. It'll be a bit. But okay.
Um,
I'm up for that challenge.
the
I won't be
next
happy
one, the
about
next
it, but I'll do
the
it.
next mind trap is declinism, where you remember the past as better than it actually was. Like, so this is kind of the good old days kind of thing. And then you
Oh,
expect the future to be worse than it probably will be. So it's a combination of like the good old days. And then my therapist calls this forecasting, where with my anxiety, I will imagine the worst case scenario and get myself super worked up about it. So when it's not that bad, I'm not, I'm happy because it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I do that.
Um,
That's my logic. And it's like, oh, well, if
yeah,
I don't have expectations,
that is a thought
then
distortion
I'm
and it's called
surprised.
forecasting. The more
Oh my
you learn
gosh.
or the more you know,
This is
right?
this is therapy. Well, and I've
um,
always wondered that. I'm always like, that's probably so toxic. Like, I probably should be more optimistic, and that's probably super
I do it too.
pessimistic. But I feel like if I don't have any expectations, then anything that surprises me, my mood won't change. Like, I
Yeah.
expect my mood not to change because I have planned it that way. So, like, then my anxiety stays at ease.
Yeah. And or when I'm expecting the absolute worst outcome, when it's not that, even if it's not a good outcome, I'm okay with it because I was expecting 1,000 times worse. Like,
Oh, yeah. Like, anytime Will takes, like, the car someplace and I'm not with him, I'm always like, be safe. And he'll be like, you. And I'll be like, no, you're taking the car. Be safe.
right? Mine is usually when I'm having like meetings at work, whether it be with parents or colleagues or whatever. I will usually with parents, I'll work myself up to like they're gonna come in and say that I'm the worst teacher their kids ever had and they want him taken out of my class
You
and yada
you
yada
you
yada.
prep yourself.
Yeah. And then I get in there and they're just like, hey, could you like send us an email once a week instead of once a month to let us know how things are going? And I'm like, got it. It's on my list. And then I
Simple. I
forget to
got
do it
you.
anyway, but I'm working on it, okay?
Ma'am, I
um
tried.
the next one is the framing effect, where you allow yourself to be influenced by context and delivery. Um, so
I'm
like the
being
location
influenced
that
right
you're in,
now.
right? The location that you're in, the way that things are said, the tone of an email, like those things can all affect you. And then the last one
Yes.
is the negativity bias, where you allow negative things to disproportionately influence your thinking. I like to call this a spiral. So when I'm like,
All the time.
I'll literally be like, what's a good example? Okay, these parents are going to be mad at me and they're going to want this to happen and I'm going to not be able to deliver that, and when I'm not able to deliver that, then my boss is going to get mad at me, and then when my boss gets mad at me, I'm not going to be able to deliver still, and then I'm going to get fired, and then we're going to lose our I'm in once I lose my job, I'm going to lose my house, and like I'll just spiral. Negativity
Yeah.
bias. And
Oh,
that shit almost
listen.
never actually happens.
Listen. I spiral 3 times a week.
Honestly though, relatable.
And Will's always like, You literally just did this like 2 days ago. Did it happen? No. So
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
why are you
It might
thinking like
happen this
this?
time.
Because you never know, it could happen. Like the chances of it happening again are like higher now because it didn't happen the first time. So like now I'm just waiting like
Girl.
all the time.
You like logic yourself into the worst, like the sky is falling. Oh my
Be like, all right,
gosh.
he didn't get into a wreck today. Like tomorrow, it's today.
Right?
Just
I
stay
literally
home.
did that recently. So my grandfather passed away recently. We've already talked about this once. We know this. So not only did my grandfather pass away, but then I found out that my mom's dog passed away, like that she had when I was growing up. So like this family pet passed away. So that was two, and I was like, deaths come in threes. Who's next?
Oh my god, death,
I
pregnancy,
wasn't
all of it.
wrong. I was not wrong. So in that aspect, I wasn't wrong. There was another death. Brittany's aunt passed away, or her great aunt passed away a few days later. So I wasn't wrong, but it still happened.
You know, I don't like that logic because my grandma passed away 7 months, 6 or 7 months before my mom passed away. And then COVID happened. And then my best friend's grandma passed away because of COVID, like 6 or 7 months after.
Comes in threes. That's been consistent my whole life. Deaths have come in threes. So you're welcome. But
What a
because of that,
coincidence.
I was like sitting there like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Like panicking.
You know
Um,
what's so weird too? There was somebody at work that was pregnant, and then like the next person that was pregnant was like my boss, and then everybody was like, "All right, it comes in threes." And like I had made a comment how I wanted to have a kid, and so they were like, "All right, Emily's the next one." And then my other coworker friend at work, she thought she was going to be pregnant next, or she was trying to be the next pregnant person. Nope, somebody different, but it came in threes.
Still came in threes.
Now we're waiting for the next cycle, and you know the sad thing is, it could be me, it could be the two managers below me. It literally could be the three of us.
Oh,
So I'm sitting
that
here
would
like,
suck for your job
yeah,
for three managers to be out on maternity leave. That would
yeah.
suck. Anywho,
Somebody better be quitting, or somebody better be coming over to help out. Like that's no. Go
so
ahead.
that's the law of threes, everybody. Anyway, back to shadow work because we're only like halfway through my notes.
Holy shit! Damn. Listen,
So now we're
my
getting into
episode's
the
not going to be
actual
this
shadow
long.
work part.
Oh my god.
So I literally put lots of asterisks around this because I felt like this was a really important. This quote came word for word from the Shadow Work Journal that I got on TikTok Shop. Um, the goal is to make the unconscious conscious so that you may work on them in self reflection and acceptance. While anyone can do shadow work, a licensed mental health expert is a good option, especially for individuals who have experienced severe trauma or abuse. So, while I realize not everyone
Here,
can
here.
afford therapy, while you're going through the journey of shadow work, especially the first time, like I know I said that this is a continual journey and it's going to continue on forever, but the first time you start on this journey, starting it with a mental health professional, or at least at the very least, like a trusted friend or someone that you can, someone in your support system that you can rely on, is a good
At
idea
Hannah. She started
because
this book. She cried for days.
I literally, yes. So I
She's
haven't
like, I
gotten
fucking
deep into it
love
yet,
that book. And I was
but I
like, yeah. She
feel
goes,
like I'm
I
going
cried for
to.
hours. Oh, yeah. She's like, I cried for hours. And now that you're like, maybe you should just do it with a trusted friend or, a professional. I'm sitting here like, Hannah, you did not do with
Yeah.
either. You did it by
Like
yourself.
there's a lot of things in here that like definitely could, yes, just yes.
Yes.
Um so there's that like disclaimer, like you probably need to make sure you have at the very least, a trusted like support network that can
At
help
least
you,
let
or at
somebody know you're
least,
doing this.
yeah, or at least like, yeah, yes, and someone who you can trust to notice if you're not okay. Um, I have a few very close friends at work. Specifically, there's three people who have checked in on me because lately I have not been okay. My intrusive thoughts have been coming right on out of my mouth. Um, for a hot minute there, and I'm kind of still on that path, kind of scared that they're going to try to send me on a grippy sock vacation. Um, so I had one of them check in with me today. Now, this person in specific is a licensed counselor. So it makes sense that she would notice that I'm not okay. The TikTok videos of intrusive thoughts that I send her might have also helped her on that journey to realize I'm not okay. But um
It's just your
she checked in with
personality
me
coming
today,
out.
and it was a good check-in. Just to remember that I'm not alone. That's the big thing to remember, that you're not alone in this journey. Um okay. First things first, you're going to set your intention and commitment to be open and honest with yourself. Pay attention to your reactions and emotions. Strong emotions or discontent with your emotions are often a result of the shadow. So you're going to keep a log of those sensations to find patterns. Um, you're going to want to journal. It doesn't have to be a guided journal from the TikTok shop or Amazon or wherever else you can buy guided journals. It can just be a regular
If
composition
you got the
notebook if that's
idea
what you
going,
choose.
like what you want to go through.
Yeah, because you can like go on Pinterest and search shadow work prompts, and there's 1,000 of them on there. So you don't need to buy this. I got this when it was on sale. It was only $8.99, so like I went ahead and bought it. And there's a
Now it's
lot
probably
of
like
like
15.
informational. Oh, you can't see that. There's lots of like informational stuff at the front. Like it's kind of like a textbook almost. So I like it, but it's not for everybody. But you're going to want some kind of notebook to record your thoughts so you can notice a pattern in your thoughts. Um,
I feel like maybe for beginners, prompts would be the best.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
Like
But like I
maybe
said, you don't
start
have
off
to
with
like
this.
have a book that has prompts in it. You can go on like
Pinterest to do
Pinterest or
that, yeah.
Google and just be like shadow work prompts, and there are tons of them out there. You can even look up specific ones like shadow work prompts for teachers, shadow work prompts for moms. Like there are a lot of very specific ones, or shadow work prompts for working with your inner child, because there's a section in this one that is about the inner child. And that's actually, I think, one of the strategies I'm going to talk about later is about your inner child. But some methods that you can use to do shadow work are journaling, meditation, therapy, or working with a spiritual guide. Um, you can use tarot cards in your shadow work, but only for clarification. I don't know. I would recommend just doing shadow work without the cards or other divination tools to start out with, because you really need to know yourself well before you can use your intuition to let the cards guide you, because your biases and your shadow self could trick you into reading the cards the wrong way um, when you're starting out. So maybe don't do that to start out. Like I said, you want to be in a safe, controlled environment when you're doing this work. Don't do it at a coffee shop. That's not the appropriate environment because, like Emily said, this is going to evoke a lot of strong emotions. Some of those emotions might be sadness. You might cry. Some of those might be anger. Like, you don't want to be in a coffee shop and get pissed off. It's just not a good look. Okay. um, It is important to remember when doing shadow work the golden rule: treat yourself or treat others as you would do unto yourself, except in reverse. How you would, if you had a friend who was upset or like having issues, you would approach them with kindness and compassion. You would not be judgmental and shitty. Treat yourself with that same grace.
If you're religious,
That will
think about what God would say.
no, fuck that guy.
I said
No.
if you're religious. I said that first.
You did, but also he's judgmental, so that's not a good example.
True.
He's kind of an asshole, okay?
Have you ever read the Old Testament?
He's kind of a dick. All
He's
right, moving
true
on.
and just. Sorry, that's our
Kind of a dick.
biases coming through.
Listen, right now I'm listening to the audiobook Lilith, which I recognize some of it is artistic liberty. It's not all true, but it's like about Lilith and how she was cast out from Eden, but she wasn't actually cast out. She left on her own. And Ashera gifted her with her wings and yada yada yada. It's like a whole thing. But a lot of that is where I'm like, God's a dick. It's a very feminist retelling of some of the
Okay.
stories from Lilith's point of view.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay.
Yes, treat yourself nicely, give yourself compassion and kindness. Don't be judgmental of yourself. That's what's going to help create that safe environment that really lets you explore and grow. If you're being down on yourself or having self-loathing, you're not going to be able to grow. Self-compassion involves recognizing and accepting our own human limitations, failures, and experiences of suffering rather than harsh self-criticism and judgment. Realizing that you don't have to be perfect. Nobody expects you to be perfect. No one is perfect.
Nobody's perfect. You gotta work
Stop it. That's Disney's gonna come for us.
I probably just said it incorrectly though, so we don't get money for this, so
That's
they can't
true. They
necessarily
can't really come for us. Okay, another important part of shadow work, or maybe even like pre-shadow work thing, is grounding. Shadow work can be super intense and emotionally draining, and it's important to ensure that you are in a safe/stable state of mind before and after the work. So much like you like cast a circle and then close the circle in witchcraft and like a spell, you want to make sure that you are stable before and after. So grounding is about being fully present in your body and mind and in the present. Some simple ways to ground yourself. I'm not going to go through these in detail because we're running out of time, to be quite honest. But some simple recognize common humanity. Remember that everyone experiences setbacks. Again, nobody's perfect. Self-care, engage in activities that bring you joy, relaxation, or a sense of well-being. Do things that make you feel good about yourself. Sometimes that's exercise, sometimes that's sleep. Sometimes that's doing your makeup, whatever makes you feel good about yourself.
Look good, feel good. I had a chemistry teacher teach me that he'd come in dressed nice for 7:30 a.m. lab. And the rest of us looked like shit. And he'd be like, "Look, I don't feel good today, but if I look good, I'm going to feel good." And I was like,
There you go.
I've carried that with me for years.
That's partially why I've started getting my nails done, because it gives me confidence. It makes me feel good about myself. So that's
Why I
part
do
of my
my
self-care.
skincare every morning. I feel like when I
You
do
do
my
have some bomb
skincare,
ass skin. I'm not gonna lie.
thanks. Yeah, I do my skincare every morning and I'm like, okay, I have confidence now because I did a great skincare routine.
You do have nice skin, so it's working.
Thanks. And you know what? It's great because I don't actually like have any highlighter on, but like I have a natural glow in like the important parts that you're supposed to have the natural glow in. And I'm like, oh, it's working.
Love
Thank
it.
you, though. I've tried so hard. I've done so much research.
Okay. Other grounding techniques. Affirmations. Positive affirmations can reduce stress and increase feelings of well-being. Sensory stimulation. Engage your senses. You can take a walk. You can smell essential oils. Turn on some like instrumental music, something like that. When I was doing my research for this last night, I had instrumental music on, and was sitting on the couch, and we just got, this is gonna sound really stupid, but we just got new trash bags. And usually we always get the scented ones because we have cats and a dog, and like it we get the scented ones because otherwise yuck. but we usually get the citrus ones and they didn't have those. So I had to get like Mountain Fresh or something like that. And I was like, the
Ooh,
fuck does a Mountain Fresh smell like? Really fucking
clean.
good, it turns out. Yeah, it smells good and clean and nice and like crisp air. I don't know. It smelled good. So it was like it smelled good in the kitchen slash living room because we have a combined
It's weird because it's like a cold smell.
yes.
It's not
That's what I mean
mint,
by
but
crisp. It's like
it just smells cold, and I just feel like
yeah.
I'm breathing in the crisp morning air on a mountain. I love that.
Yes. Yes. That's
If
what
it
it
could
yes.
transform you or transport you to like a location, done.
Yeah, or just to call out one of my friends that I currently work with, she was texting me the other night. She was at a concert and she'd had a lot going on recently and she had a panic attack and she was like she'd never had one before. And so she had her first panic attack at a concert and was texting me like, what do I do? I can't, like, there's nowhere quiet. Even the bathrooms aren't quiet at a concert. Like it's just loud everywhere and there's people everywhere. But she had some citrus scented chapstick in her purse and she was smelling that and she was able to ground herself with that and pull herself out of
That's
the panic
good.
attack and be okay. um but in that I was telling her do the five senses thing, which is, if you don't know, it's like five things you can see, four
See,
things you can smell, three things you can
it's
touch,
it's it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch,
two
two
things you
things you
can
can smell,
smell.
because like it's really hard for you to smell certain, like you
Yeah.
don't have access to a lot of it, so I think it's like smell and
Yeah.
taste.
Yes, that I sent her that. And like obviously you don't have a lot of control over what you can hear at a concert, but she was able to use the scent and bring herself back. Fun fact, citrus is also like, just the scent of citrus is really good for mood balancing. So if you're having like mood unstable moods, citrus scents are good.
You know what my favorite thing to
Um
use right now is?
hmm,
This thing from Sea Witch Botanicals. I
what scent
can't.
is it? I can't read that. It's got a glare.
Yeah, I know. It's called Herbal Renewal. It's a scented veil. It's an invigorating blend of lavender and rosemary, and let me tell you, it calms shit down.
I like it. Lavender is good.
Oh my god, yeah, with like a little hint of
Um
like spice.
yes. Last grounding technique is deep breathing. Like deep breathing is good for everything. Literally, like my some of my favorite TikToks when I'm just like doom scrolling are the ones that are like, girl, unclench your jaw, take a deep
Take a
breath,
second.
relax your shoulders. Like deep breathing is always
Yo,
good. There's lots of different types of breaths. Like we're using conscious discipline in our schools right now. And I know I talk about it a lot, but it's because I'm super fucking passionate about it. Like if conscious discipline was hiring, I would go work there. But deep breathing is like a huge part of it because it calms you down and allows you to center yourself and focus. So we do it with the kids a lot. We even do it at our meetings a lot. But um there's all kinds of different types of breathing. And two of my favorite ones, or one of them, is you take a deep breath and when you almost have your lungs full, then you take in another little like burst of breath. So you're like and like then breathe out. And it's like kind of a fun one. And then one that the kids really like is when you breathe in and then on your out, it's called fire breathing. I'm not really sure why, but when you breathe out, you like do a loud sigh and they think that's fucking hilarious because they're like, like that's super fucking dramatic, but that's how middle schoolers are.
there's
Anyway,
actually a
deep
technique.
breathing.
There's a technique that my acting coach taught me, and it's specifically so that like I can learn my lung capacity and like control of air. But listen, when I do that, it calms me the fuck down because you're supposed to like breathe in so you can get a couple of breaths, push all that air out as much as you can, and then breathe as much as you can and like until it hurts in your lungs, and then you um close your mouth and then you slowly breathe through your teeth, like make like a
Mm-hmm.
noise, but see how long you can take it, and then obviously don't do that a couple of times because you're probably going to pass out, but the longer you can hold it, the better breath you have. And I don't know what it was about it. I don't know if it was the motion, if it was the breathing or what, but it really, really like centered me where I was.
It does. Like, cause it's almost impossible to take a deep breath in and out and not relax. Like not fully relax, but like it relaxes some of your muscles and releases some tension. Like it's a
It
huge
stretches
thing.
you, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And always stretch, man.
Um
Let me tell you, stretching is good for the soul.
Now we're to my tabs. I was making fun of myself when talking to Emily before we started because we were talking about our different research styles. Like I have a Google Doc with like a chart with different like sections. In one of those sections, I reference the different tab colors in my book. I have 3 different colors of tabs. So, how to spot your shadow self is the red tab in my book. I'm not going to read this to
What a
you because if you
Ravenclaw.
want to read this, you can get the book yourself. But I'm going to read the 4 like titles. So the different ways to spot your shadow self are noticing your triggers, recognizing patterns, understanding projections, pay attention to dreams, and
Ooh.
explore your childhood and past experiences. So those are some ways to spot your shadow self and kind of start to learn what or who your shadow self is. Then integrating your shadow self. There's a few different, and none of this is like all encompassing. Like there might be other things that are not in this book. This is just one book. But to integrate your shadow self, there's a few different things. These ones I'm going to go into a little more detail because otherwise, like the first time I read this first one, I was like, the fuck is that? So there's something called emotional freedom technique tapping. Um, so you focus on unresolved. How do I explain this? Let me just read this to you. Um, by combining specific tapping sequences on meridian points with focused attention on unresolved emotions and beliefs, EFT can help release energetic blockages, promote self acceptance, and facilitate the integration of shadow aspects. So, you think about or reflect on the emotions, beliefs, and or memories that arise when you think about those shadow aspects, and then you're going to like either the top of the head, the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the nose, chin, collarbone, and under the arm. Gently tap each point with 2 or 3 fingers while repeating a relevant statement or focusing on the associated emotion. So, like, that's EFT. Another technique is inner child affirmations. You can Google or Pinterest inner child affirmations. This book has a list, like a whole page of them. Um, but these affirmations will specifically address shadows that you have, but they need to be positive, present tense statements that reflect self acceptance, healing, and integration. So let me see if I can find that page real quick. I did not
How
mark the
dare
page.
you not
I
be
know.
so freaking organized?
Well,
How dare
listen.
you be so chaotic?
Here they are. Inner child affirmation. So like, I am protected. I am loved. I dream big. I am beautiful and I accept myself for who I am. I honor the child within me. My energy is limitless. Um, I am in control of my feelings. My needs and feelings are valid. Like, just they're positive, short statements about your inner child struggles.
I need this
Another
book.
one is ongoing awareness, which it's it's like putting a butterfly net or like a filter, like Emily works at the pet store, like a filter in your fish tank, um, that catches all your triggers and negative thoughts. So like it's not going to make them go away, but like when you catch them, you can attempt to change them. You can attempt to change, like reframe that mindset by being aware. So that's ongoing awareness. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is the green tab in the book, emotional triggers.
All of them.
Again, I'm not going to go deep into these, but that could be like a whole other episode. But I'm just going to list them right quick. Shame, guilt, anger, sadness, embarrassment, jealousy, regret, and fear. So that is
Maybe this book will help me get over my fear of acting because of the
there's
shame and
literally
the
a
embarrassment.
whole thing about fear. And there's a avoidance. That was a page I just passed.
Because I feel like not that I avoid my acting coach, but I will tell her, all right, we'll schedule the next one. And if we don't schedule it right then and there, it could be like 3 or 4 weeks before I reach back out.
Do that with the dentist.
Avoidance.
I'll call you and schedule it later.
I don't want to see you ever again.
Fear. Yeah, there it is. There's a whole journal prompt page on fear. So, anyway, I haven't got super deep into this book, but so far what I have seen in it, I do like and I recommend. It's called The Shadow Work Journal, A Guide to Integrate and Transcend Your Shadows.
They also have a
note at Zenful Note on TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever that symbol stands for, at Zenful Note, ZenFulNote, Zenful Note. But it's on the TikTok shop. If you,
what's the symbol?
It's like a.
That's
that
YouTube.
One? That's YouTube?
YouTube Shorts.
Oh, YouTube Shorts. Okay. Well, there you go. If you go to the TikTok shop and you Google and you search the Shadow Work Journal, this is the one that'll pop up. It's been actually, if you listen to this fucking podcast episode,
you can go to Amazon and get it too. I just looked it up.
Oh, well, that works too. Whatever. This I got it on the TikTok shop, but wherever you can
get
find
it at Walmart,
it,
apparently.
You can?
Yeah.
The fuck?
It popped
How
up.
much is it at Walmart?
17 something.
Oh, see, I got it cheaper on a TikTok shop because if you go to if you search the Shadow Work Journal as like a tag and you search through videos, some of the influencers or content creators, whatever you want to call them, will have discount codes. That's how I got mine for $8.99. So mine was $8.99 with a discount code through, I don't remember what her name is. I could look it up if anybody really wants to know though. So that is
they also
an introduction to shadow work.
I like it. They also have a second edition, which is the same. It just might have more prompts or more things, I've found out. So if you want the second edition, it's out and about. I don't know about if it's on the TikTok shops, but that's what I was looking at on Amazon. So
I like it.
Yay.
All right.
Cool. Until next time.
Bye.